Gracias. Buenas tardes. I am a medical doctor, and my field of practice is anti-aging medicine. And I've written 3 books on anti-aging. My second book was called Fantastic Voyage. And the subtitle of the book was Live Long Enough to Live Forever. It would have been simpler for me to just have said how to live forever. The problem is we don't know how to do that. But we do believe that there will be many breakthroughs in medicine coming in the years and decades ahead, and that will enable people to live for far longer periods of time than they have ever lived for before. The problem that gets in the way, though, is this process that we refer to as aging. But we need to differentiate between the process of getting older and the process of aging. There is a difference because all of us are growing older. In fact, we've grown a few hours older than we entered this auditorium this morning. But we haven't all necessarily aged, because aging, by definition, is a harmful process. We can look at children. For instance, children on the left side are 5 years of age, and on the right side are 15 years of age. These children have grown 10 years older, but I think it could be easily argued that they haven't aged during those 10 years, because 15-year-olds, teenagers, are typically a lot healthier than 5-year-olds, because 5-year-olds are often getting infections, ear infections, sore throats. We're bringing them to the doctor all the time, whereas 15-year-olds, teenagers, virtually never get sick. And the reason is because they have much higher levels of hormones, and hormones are designed to keep us healthy. The aging process takes our hormones away. So we know that it's possible to grow at least 10 years older without aging in childhood, but it's also possible to do it at any stage of life. This is a gentleman named Bob Del Montique that it was my privilege to meet in 1994. And if we look at his picture at age 60, and then look at his picture 20 years later at age 80, I think you could easily argue that he hasn't aged very much in those 20 years. In fact, in many ways, I think he's grown younger. So the idea of our living longer, of our anti-aging, of our living lifespans into our 80s, 90s, 100 and beyond, what we were looking to do is we are looking to maintain our youthful vitality so that we can be like Bob, who is shown here at age 84 years of age. So this is what we're looking to try to accomplish. So there are some things that we can do, and I'd like to talk about 3 of them. First of all is our diets, because I think that diet is very important. The Dalai Lama was giving an audience to Pittsburgh. There were several thousand people, and one of the individuals in the back of the audience raised his hand and said, "Your Holiness, what advice can you give the people of Pittsburgh?" And the Dalai Lama answered very simply. He said, "Eat less." Now, this is a big problem because many of us are eating more. And over the past 40 years, it turns out that we're eating about 400 to 500 calories more than we used to. And as a result, there's a lot more obesity going around. And this has led to some significant health problems. On the opposite side is caloric restriction. That's where we deliberately cut calories. In animal experiments, caloric restriction has been shown to be the only method so far to consistently lead to increases in life expectancy for animals. It's more difficult to do these experiments on humans, but there is a group that lives in the Japanese island of Okinawa. And they practice caloric restriction as part of their culture, as their way of life. Japan is among the longest lived countries in the world, and the prefecture of Okinawa is among the most longest lived in Japan. And when people in Okinawa sit down to eat a meal, the type of grace they say is 3 Japanese words, hara, hachi, bu, which means stomach 8 parts or 80% full. So they try to restrict their calories as part of their lifestyle, and this has led to significant increases in longevity for them. Now, the older people in Japan, in Okinawa in particular, are following this hara, hachi, bu lifestyle, but the youngsters are not. They're becoming westernized. And they're eating the fast foods and eating lots of sugary foods. And this has led to a significant problem. And the estimates now are that not just in Japan, but in the United States and elsewhere, if current trends continue, our children will be the first generation in recorded history to have life expectancies shorter than their parents, shorter than us, because of the significant problems of overweight that exists. We can look at the obesity trends that have occurred in the last 20 years. If we look at what's happened from 1990 to the present, in 1990 in the United States, there were virtually no states that were over 15% for obesity. Whereas in the year 2009, merely 19 years later, there was not a single state. In fact, only one state that was less than 20%, and there were many states which were over 30%. So obesity is becoming an increasing problem, and we're doing just the opposite of calorie restriction for ourselves. One of the biggest problems and one of the major places that we're getting these excess calories from is the overconsumption of sugar. It appears that in the United States, the average American consumes 73 pounds of sugar per person per year, and in Mexico it's a little bit higher, about 80 pounds per person per year. We normally think of sugar as a good thing. If you're looking at health risks, you wouldn't normally think of sugar as a health risk. It's easy to look at something like smoking or tobacco, because if you smoke cigarettes, you're going to smell bad, your fingers will be stained, you will develop a cough. It just seems like it would be bad, but sugar seems to be very benign. If a child falls down and scrapes themselves, gets a cut on the knee, we will often clean it off and then give them a sugary treat, because sugar makes everything all better. And if you'll think about someone that you love, someone who is very near and dear to you in your heart, the odds are that the nickname that you use for them is some type of high glycemic index carbohydrate food. Something in the neighborhood of sugar or honey or sweetheart. So in our minds, we typically equate sugar with love and with happiness. We even celebrate most of our holidays. Christmas, Navidad is coming up shortly. The people that come to visit us, what are they going to bring us? They're not going to bring us pot roasts. They're not going to bring us steaks. They're going to bring us cookies and pies and cakes and fudge and things like that. So we celebrate holidays with sugary foods, and this has led to a number of health problems for us. The biggest place that we single-handedly get so much sugar from is the consumption of soft drinks. Now, sugary soft drink consumption in the United States currently averages out to 560 12-ounce cans per person per year. Now, I don't drink any. That means that there's at least one person in the United States drinking over 1,100 cans of these soft drinks, which is an awful lot of sugar. So that's creating some problems for us, and I think one of the simplest things we can do if we're looking to get the health benefits of calorie restriction is to begin to eliminate sugar from our diets. What we have going against us is the fact that our genetic code has not changed very much in the last 30 or 40,000 years. If you look at the genes that existed in the Stone Age and compare them to the genes we have today, they're more than 99.9% the same. We haven't evolved very much. Evolution occurs very slowly. So what do our caveman and cavewoman genes tell us? They tell us, eat sugar every chance you can get. Because what can we do with sugar when we eat it? Number one, we can burn it for energy, or number two, we can change it into triglycerides or fat and store it to help us get through the next famine. So it can either give us energy so we can run quickly to escape danger or to obtain something else for food, or we can store it for fat to survive the next famine, because we, in the Stone Age, were always on the verge of famine at all times. So we're living in a milieu that tells us to eat sugar every chance we can get. But in the Stone Age, we had very little access to sugar. Now we have enormous access to sugar. So it creates a number of problems for us. Sugar is the major cause in our leading causes of death. Number one cause of death is heart attacks. Number two cause of death is cancer. Sugar leads to something called metabolic syndrome, which is implicated in 50% of heart attacks. It turns out that cancer cells can only eat one food. They can't eat fat. They can't eat protein. The majority of cancer cells can only eat sugar. So every time we eat sugar, we feed the 10,000 cancer cells that we spontaneously form in our bodies every day. So sugar really isn't doing us a big service to eat a lot of it. Sugar causes this fat that is right above the waistline. This is the most dangerous type of fat. And so we would be well advised to reduce sugar as much as possible. What we'd like to do is we'd like to do caloric restriction without restricting our calories, because nobody wants to go hungry all the time. Turns out there's a substance in red wine. It's called resveratrol. Resveratrol has some of the same effects on our metabolism that caloric restriction does. So in addition to drinking small amounts of red wine, resveratrol is available as a supplement, and we can take this resveratrol supplement pills and get some of the benefits of caloric restriction. There's also something called proanthocyanidin. It's found within grape seeds. This grapeseed extract is available, mimics caloric restriction. And finally, green tea. If we drink green tea without sugar, these are some things we can do to mimic caloric restriction. So some other things we can do. Consider having a salad for your main meal. If we don't put too much salad dressing on a salad, if we eat a salad once a day, several days a week, we can drastically cut our calories. It's also a good idea to consider fasting for 12 hours every day. So I try to do that. I eat breakfast typically around 7 or 7:30. So I try to stop eating after 7 or 7:30 at night. So there's at least a 12-hour window every day where I am not consuming any calories. So between eating the salads most days of the week, trying to go at least 12 hours without eating, and avoiding sugar, these are 3 simple ways of doing a caloric restriction that are fairly painless. The second topic I'd like to talk about is the need for exercise. We need aerobic exercise, we need strength training exercise, and we need stretching exercise if we're going to live long enough to live forever. Our bodies are designed to get plenty of exercise, and if we once again go back to our caveman and cavewoman genes, we got plenty of exercise when we were living in the Stone Age. We had to run quickly to escape danger. We had to run quickly to obtain food. Nowadays, we don't need to do that, but what does our genes tell us to do when it comes to exercise? They tell us, do it as little as possible, because exercise burns calories. So we didn't have to worry. Our bodies need exercise. We got plenty of exercise when we lived in the Stone Age. We had to in order to survive. But nowadays we don't have to. Our genes tell us don't do it unless we have to. So between the combination of genes that tell us eat sugar whenever you can and exercise only when you must, as little as possible, I think that these 2 factors alone have contributed to the epidemic of overweight and obesity that's going on in the United States and the rest of the world right now. We've known that exercise has considerable benefits for at least 60 years. In 1950, some scientists did a study that they published in the prestigious medical journal Lancet, where they compared heart attack and longevity rates for the drivers of these double-decker red buses in London compared to the conductors that ran up and down the stairs all day collecting the tickets. And they found that there was a drastic decrease, over 40% decrease in death rates and heart attacks in the conductors that were getting the exercise running up and down the stairs compared to the drivers who were sitting all day. So we've known for a long time that we can improve our longevity by getting regular exercise. We can also do a lot better job, since we have a genetic code that tells us to exercise as little as possible, to get our exercise sessions done quickly. In the old days, which is as recently as 2 or 3 years ago, the medical advice was get your heart rate up to 80% of your maximum predicted heart rate and keep it there for 30 minutes, etc. We find out that this actually isn't as good as if we just do what's called interval training, where we go out and we exercise very hard for shorter periods of time, and we can get much better benefits. So this is a 20-minute exercise program that I've recently started doing in my own life, and I recommend to my patients. And you might want to do if you're not exercising now, or if you don't like exercise, you can get the exercise done quickly, where you divide your exercise into 6 3-minute blocks. You do a little warm-up first, and then the first piece of exercise you'll do 2 minutes. Let's say you're going to jog. So you'll run fairly slowly for 2 minutes, then you'll walk to rest for 1 minute, then you'll cut it down a little bit. You'll run for 1 minute 45 seconds, but you'll run faster. And then you have a little bit more time, 1 minute 15 seconds to rest. Then once again you drop it to 1 minute 30 seconds, but now you're running harder. And progressively through this, so that by the time you finish and your last 45 or 30 seconds are sprints, where you're running as fast as you possibly can. This form of exercise turns out to be very good for us. We also need to do strength training. You don't need to belong to a gym to do this. You can do push-ups and sit-ups in your house. It's simple to do calisthenics using your body weight for your exercise. One of the reasons that we want to do strength training is one of the ways that aging process and our Stone Age genetic code has removed our health from us and caused us to age is by taking away our hormones. Well, this was a study where they compared the levels of testosterone in 30-year-old men, which is the black bars, compared to 62-year-old men, which is the shaded bars. The left side are the testosterone levels for men before they began exercise. The right side is after they were on exercise for 12 weeks. And we'll notice that the shaded bars on the right side, the 62-year-old men testosterone levels were just the same as the 30-year-old men's at the beginning. So it's possible to erase 32 years of hormonal aging simply by doing some push-ups and some strength training in our life. So we need to do that well as an anti-aging. And then finally, we need to stretch afterwards. We don't need to let our muscles tighten up. Tendons tighten up, because if they do, they damage our joints, and then we don't have the ability to exercise because we hurt too much. So basically, all you need to do is 3 20-minute sessions of aerobics, 3 20-minute sessions of strength training. It adds up to a total of 120 minutes or 2 hours a week. And even if you don't like to exercise, that's a reasonable amount that most of us can fit into our lives. The third thing is the real tidal wave that's coming. That's the stem cell therapies. I think that the stem cell therapies are going to rewrite the textbooks when it comes to how we practice medicine today. And in the next few years, we're going to be doing things with stem cells that are beyond comprehension. Stem cells, another name for them, are our repair cells, because those are the cells in our body that repair things. It turns out that our stem cells are not very far away at all. If we take blood from our arm, we can run it through a machine and collect stem cells from that. In 4 hours, we might be able to collect 50,000 stem cells. If we were to do a bone marrow, a painful process, and extract as much bone marrow as possible, we might be able to get 100 or 200,000 stem cells. But belly fat is the richest source of stem cells in the body. We are able to harvest between 500,000 and 1 million cells from belly fat from every gram. And if you just take 2 ounces, 60 cc's, 60 milliliters of fat, we can get hundreds of millions of stem cells, which is enough. And it's a simple process to remove and extract the stem cells from the belly fat. Right now, it's possible to treat heart attacks with stem cells. What they're doing in experimental studies, this machine, the patient comes into the emergency room, is having a heart attack. The doctor is possible to remove a couple ounces, 60 milliliters of fat, put it in this machine. In 90 minutes, this machine can extract the stem cells. The patient is taken up to the heart lab, the catheterization laboratory, where the surgeon can then insert the stem cells through catheter right in the heart, and it repairs the damage right away. So we're already starting to see this on many levels. This slide shows survival is much better when stem cells are used than when they're not used. We use it in orthopedics. This is one of the approved uses in the United States right now. This was a slide showing that the various types of cartilage in the knee, both the cartilage that coats the surface of the joint, as well as the meniscal cartilage that's a cushion between the top and lower bones, increases with the use of stem cells injected into the knee joint in the case of arthritis. There are also a number of cosmetic applications for stem cells. We can extract the stem cells, we can inject them into the face, and various types of aging, scarring, wrinkles, lines will go away. Individuals that have lost hair, male pattern baldness, women that are losing hair from alopecia, the stem cells will help to regrow the hair as well. It's been used as facial fillers. We are using fat to move to other parts of the body, and surgeons, plastic surgeons, have been doing that for many years. They will take some fat from the belly, they will inject it into the face. The problem is it only lasts for maybe 1 or 2 years because the body tends to absorb it. If we take some fat from the belly and then we take a little bit of extra fat from the belly to isolate the stem cells and enrich the fat with the stem cells and then inject that in the face, it will last for many years. It appears that it will last at least 10 years and possibly more. So we're now using facial fillers with belly fat for rejuvenation purposes. We are using it for body sculpting. Sometimes women would like to enhance bust line or the buttocks and remove the belly fat, so we can use the liposuction to move the fat around the body, and by enriching it with stem cells, it lasts a lot longer. One of the other problems we have is that with all of the other parts of our body, our stem cells age also. So you'll notice the slide on the left shows what happens in childhood. When we have an injury and our stem cells come, the first thing that they do is they do a little bit of inflammation. The second thing they do is a lot of rejuvenation, repair. And then the third thing they do is a tiny bit of fibrosis, scarring. That's completely different than what happens when we're old. When an older individual has an injury like that, there is relatively more inflammation, relatively less rejuvenation, and relatively more scarring. So one of the things that makes the most sense for us to do is to consider freezing our stem cells. We can now, there are some laboratories that offer us the ability to take some of our fat, to take some of our blood, to isolate the stem cells, and to keep it in frozen storage. So by doing so, we will have the ability to have the youngest possible stem cells available to us in the near future when we need them. So I want to take this opportunity I hope you enjoyed these thoughts that you can use, and I want to wish you all happy anti-aging. Thank you very much.